All right, good morning, everybody. We are here for the Wednesday, June 25th, 2005 Marion County Board of Commissioners Board Session. We're in the Senator Hearing Room at 555 Court Street Northeast in Salem. It's 9 a.m. If you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do a full spin.
I saw you. I thought you were going to keep going.
Direction in my hair. Good morning, Tim.
It's already going to be a day.
It's a good day.
It is a good day. All right, Commissioner Cameron, there's a couple of
Yeah.
items of cleanup.
We
Would
need
you
to make
please?
a couple changes to the
Yes,
agenda.
sir.
Madam Chair, I will move that we remove an item from the action agenda under the Justice Court, a contract with Tyler Technologies for a case and document management system.
I'll second the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes.
And Madam Chair, I will move that we add under the action agenda, Community Services, consider approval of a grant agreement with Brothers of Valor, Inc. to provide Valor mentoring funding to support a public access coffee shop cafe that is utilized for community improvement.
I second the motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, we don't have anybody signed up for public comment currently. So would you please move the consent agenda, sir? And I'm sorry about that.
What? Would somebody make public comment just long enough to Commissioner Willis get here? Because I think I did this last
I'm happy
week.
to move it myself.
Oh,
if you'd
no,
like.
I'll be
Okay.
glad. Madam Chair, I'll move the consent agenda. First, under Board of Commissioners, to appointments, Intellectual and Developmental Disability Advisory Committee. Approve an order reappointing Kathy Schnelby to the Marion County Intellectual and Development Disabilities Advisory Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2029. Under Business Services, approve an order adopting revised Marion County Administrative Policy number 524 procedure number 524-A, number 524-B, and number 524-C, building security and access. Also under Business Services, approve a public improvement agreement with M&S General Contractors and Remodeling LLC in the amount of $172,061.17 to provide construction services for the Marion County Courthouse Square third floor remodel project of increased office space through March 31st, 2026. Yes, finally. Approve a public improvement agreement with the Woodburn Construction CMGC LLC in the amount of $257,000 to provide construction services for the Marion County Stabilization Center remodel project through December 31st, 2025. Under Health and Human Services, approve amendment number 2 for contract for services with Public Partnerships LLC to add $750,000 for a new not-to-exceed contract total of $1,850,000 to provide financial intermediary services through October 31st, 2025. Also under Health and Human Services, approve amendment number 13 to the incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority to add $345,966.12 for the MHS 17 non-OHP community residential assistance for a new IGA total of $24,146,670.39, retroactive to January 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Can I get a helpline and have Commissioner Willis finish it?
Sure.
I'm on item number 7 under the, no, I'll finish it.
I think it'd be great if you funded it, though.
I got it.
Whatever you like.
Welcome.
I'm here to help.
Thank you. All right. Approve amendment number 14 to the incoming funds intergovernmental agreement and the Oregon Health Authority to add $500,000 for A&D 66, Community Behavioral Health and Substance Use Disorder Services for a new IGA total of $24,646,670.39 to be utilized for the operation of Marion County's Her Place retroactive to January 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. Another good one. They're all good. Public Works, schedule final consideration to adopt an administrative order by July 9th, 2025 for amendments to clarify the applicability of existing code provisions related to battery energy storage systems in Marion County urban and rural zone codes, chapter 16 and 17. Under the Sheriff's Office, approve the incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with the City of Sublimity in the amount of $257,395 to provide law enforcement services effective July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Also under the Sheriff's Office, approve amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement with the Marion County and Human Services to add $670,000 for a new IGA total of $1,190,634. To add 630,000? What did I say? 670. Oh, 630,000 for an IGA total of $1,190,634 to continue to access, monitor, and provide treatment services to Student Opportunity for Achieving Results, known as SOAR, participants with substance abuse disorders through June 30th, 2027. Should have made the sheriff read that. All right, number 11 under the Sheriff's Office, approve amendment number 2 for intergovernmental agreement with Chemeketa Community College to add $510,610.46 for a new IGA total of $1,021,220.92 to continue to provide Student Opportunity Achieving Results or program services to community corrections clients through June 30th, 2027. Also under the Sheriff's Office, boy, Sheriff Hunter, I'm glad you're here today. Amendment number 2 to the restated interdepartmental agreement with the Marion County District Attorney's Office to add $309,000 for a new agreement total of $524,424.09 to renew the IDA to provide initial risk assessment information for a specific group of nonviolent property and drug offenders with medium to high criminogenic risk factors through June 30th, 2027. You owe me big time, Commissioner Willis. And finally, under number 13, approve the contract for services with Pathfinders of Oregon DBA, the Pathfinder Network, in the amount of $1,204,134 to provide treatment and peer mentoring services to community corrections clients with medium to high criminogenic risk factors through June 30th, 2027.
I second the motion.
Thank you for your support.
Okay, motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just a point of clarification, Commissioner Bethel, I did not show up late today, so that Commissioner Cannon would have to read the consent
Two in a row?
agenda. Just to allay any concerns that might have been motivating my tardiness.
That's great. All right, any
That's
other
good. It's good for my vocal cords. Where's my water?
any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 The motion passes. Thank
Madam
you.
Chair, you know, you go to some meetings, and, well, talk to legal counsel, and I think it's, Jan probably knows this better than anybody here. I think it was a tradition that we read the consent calendar versus just said, I move the consent calendar. But I almost was tempted to do that today,
Right.
just to move the consent
Right,
calendar.
there are many bodies that do not do that.
They don't read it
Right.
because it's published.
Yeah, most don't. I think I'm glad that we do it
Yeah.
because it's captioned on the TV for folks who are hearing impaired or whatever to be able to follow along. And also, how do you find anything on our website? To find the published document, no offense, but I think it's difficult.
This is on the website.
I know,
Yeah.
but you have
Yeah.
to be lucky enough to find it. All right, let's move on to item number 15 under Health and Human Services. to consider approval of the incoming funds grant agreement with Oregon Health Authority in the amount of $9,500,000 for the operation of drug addiction treatment and recovery services effective July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. Good morning, Carol.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Carol Hurd, Addiction Treatment Services Division Director with Marion County Health and Human Services. And I am here this morning seeking approval for the receipt of incoming funds in the amount of $9,500,000 to be used from July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. As you stated, these funds are awarded as a grant through the Oregon Health Authority for drug addiction treatment and recovery services. As you are aware, in the fall of 2024, Marion County Health and Human Services responded to a request for a grant application through the Oregon Health Authority. And although initially approved, the proposed allocation was significantly less than what had been awarded in the previous grant period. After significant advocacy through local government leaders, it was recommended that Oregon Health Authority and the Oregon Accountability and Oversight Committee review and reconsider funding allocations, which ultimately resulted in this award amount. Our initial award amount was to be approximately $3,400,000 and over the course of 4 years, which our previous grant amount was just over $11 million over a 3-year period. So that was a considerable reduction in funding. Although this grant at $9,500,000 is still a reduction, especially that the grant period is extended by an additional year, it's still far better than the initial allocation considered. If approved, these funds would be used to provide screenings, behavioral health needs assessments, peer support services, and substance use disorder treatment services to uninsured and underinsured individuals with substance use disorders seeking services. Do you have any questions?
Just a comment of gratitude to Commissioner Bethel, yourself, and Ryan Matthews for your advocacy. You know, there are sometimes, you know, we do kind of what's expected of us, but every once in a while there's a but-for situation where but for your work, the outcome would have been very different. And I have no question in my mind that but for Commissioner Bethel and Ryan Matthews and yourself, we would be getting $3 million today instead of $9. So that's a big difference to our community.
Big difference.
Yeah, we worked really hard to change the dynamic of that discussion. I don't have any questions. I think, could you just unpack a little bit about the difference of these funds versus the funds that we get through our CFAA contract or whatever other contract we get?
So these funds are through cannabis tax dollars,
Right.
which was through in the fall of 2020, the voters passed Measure 110, which essentially at that point in time had effectively decriminalized substance use. And then House Bill 4002 kind of reversed some of that. But these funds are allocated through tax dollars collected through cannabis sales.
Thank you. Can you send me the, I don't know what form it would look like, but kind of how you're allocating these funds and with a little more detail?
A little more detail than the budget attached?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I obviously think these are super important dollars, and we've used them really wisely, I think, over the last 3 years, and I have no doubt you'll use them wisely going forward, but I just want to understand kind of how they're broken out into what buckets. And then as we move throughout this next year, working on collaborative systems internally and externally, I think there's going to be portions of these funds that are going to be important to the outcomes that we design as a team in those discussions. And I don't have a clear understanding exactly how these kind of fall in each bucket. For example, I know that these funds can be utilized for individuals in our community who might be covered under commercial insurance, but that commercial insurance doesn't cover addiction treatment systems. So those individuals could come through our service system and receive those services, which is really important, and or gap coverage for individuals who do have addiction treatment services provided on their insurance plan, but it's not enough. You know, on and on and on, because there's really pretty limited strings other than you must live in Marion County and receive services through our system to be supported with these dollars. I've appreciated the flexibility that you all have applied over the last couple of years. to try, just to make sure that anybody who calls is responded to immediately. And that system is only going to be more collaborative, I think, going forward. The sheriff's in the audience, so I'm thinking about the projects and discussions that we're having with the sheriff's office and the district attorney's office and the city of Salem and partners like that.
Of course.
Yeah, and I also just want to say that while it's important to pass this contract, and I know that we're all supportive of it, the outcome of the revenue, so their overall reduction in revenue is what they claim, and then they extended the contract period for additional year. We have community partners that were greatly harmed by the outcome and decisions of the Oversight and Accountability Council. Bridgeway comes to mind. Yep. A couple weeks ago, they just abruptly ended their youth addiction treatment program, which really doesn't have anything to do with the burn program, but it's still an awful outcome for our community. And we're going to be pivoting quite a bit over the next several months with our partners at the table and bringing new partners to the table who were funded and kind of, I think, navigating a new culture of relationships with the intention that still, no matter what, no matter who, you are receiving services if you're ready for services. So, Carol, I want to say thanks for being so responsive to me over the last several months. I know that you and Marion were kind of occasionally just pulled out of things to make sure we could be responsive to the advocacy.
Absolutely.
And I wouldn't normally do this, but I want to say thanks to the Salem Reporter. Madeline Moore did a really good job covering this particular situation in detail and providing information to the public, who then advocated positively for outcomes that we are seeing today. That's not usual in my experience as a commissioner, and I think it's very helpful to be transparent with detailed information so people can understand what's happening, so they can choose to speak informed versus just being angry and lost. So, thank you.
Maybe the only thing I'd add, Commissioner Bethel, is while it's not related to the funding, I think what Bridgeway is going through now shows the stakes.
Right.
That if these organizations are starved of resources, we will have massive gaps of care in our community. And it's just a good reminder how important this is.
Yeah. Yep. I have so many thoughts around that, but I know we need to move on, so I'll let you make the motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the incoming funds grant agreement with the Oregon Health Authority in the amount of $9,500,000 for the operation of drug addiction treatment and recovery services effective July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2029.
I will second the motion.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion passes. Thanks, Carol.
Thank you, Commissioners.
All right, now we're going to move on to community services to hear about Valor Mentoring and a project that they're going to be bringing online in North Salem.
Morning, Commissioners. My name is Kelly Weiss. I serve as the Community Services Director here at Marion County. And thank you for turning to and helping us get this together so we could get this agreement set for early at the beginning of this next fiscal year. So today we have the opportunity to consider approval of a grant agreement with the Brothers of Valor, Inc. We call it Valor Mentoring, in the amount of $150,000. This funding is to support development of a public access coffee shop and cafe that will serve as a safe, substance-free space for youth for recreation and mentoring. The proposed location is at 2421 Lancaster Drive Northeast in Salem, and the grant term is set for July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. The funding for this project is for opioid settlement funding, as the project is set to serve to prevent early substance abuse and opioid involvement. But this project came to us as a project that we reviewed in our CDBG and home application process and came to realize that there was another alternative funding source for this potential project. So before we move forward, I'm happy to answer any questions about the agreement, but I'd love to also introduce Tim Davis, the founder and CEO of Valor Mentoring, and he's with us today and able to talk more about the vision and the project in general.
Sure, yeah. I'll try to be brief. There'll be a lot going on. It'll be similar to what we've done in the previous buildings that we have, but there'll be community space, after-school programming almost every day of the week. We have partnerships with, of course, tons of schools, sheriff's office. Actually, it'll be a first responder 24-hour day access for Salem PD and Marion County Sheriffs. So they'll have fobs to get in if they want to take breaks. Like we do at the Grange for Kaiser PD, there's snacks, coffee, and that. And so 24 hours a day, they can hang out in our facility. It doesn't hurt to have a cop car out in front of your building at 2 a.m. So, yeah, so that's worth a little beef jerky and coffee. But, yeah, again, you know, we serve hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids. We expect this to probably eclipse everything we've done till now, including both of our other facilities as far as services and the amount of youth we'll be able to serve. Again, it's right on Lancaster across the street from McKay High School. We have 15 or 16 sophomore or juniors from McKay, McNary, and Blanchette on an advisory board. They've already been inside the building, and they're getting to help create ideas around menu and programming and facility use and all that stuff as we're working with CB2 to create the space and so on. So, yeah. I'm welcome to answer a ton of other questions if you need it.
Before I ask a question, could you just introduce yourself?
Sorry, yeah. Tim Davis, founder, CEO of Valor Mentoring, or Brothers Valor Inc. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
So we were helpful with the rec project over
Rec
in
Grange,
the
yep.
Rec Grange, yes, in Kaiser. And for me, this project is important because we have a significant amount of crime, and
68% of all crime in Salem Kaiser happens within 3 miles of McKay High School.
right, I mean, like, I know you're going to get there, and we're going to draw this out, but we're
Sorry,
using these
Yes.
particular funds, which are required to reduce overall substance use around opioid addiction, which I think has a ripple effect across our community for health, wellness, crime, et cetera. And I'm a graduate of McKay. When I was in high school, a really long time ago, you know, we had open campus, which I think they still may have. So
Yeah.
for
Underclassmen,
lunch,
no. I think upperclassmen, yes. I think that's
just
how it
juniors
works.
and seniors. Okay, well, I had the pleasure all 4 years of having open campus. And we would go across the street. Quiznos was actually over where you're going to be opening up your
Right.
shop. And the owner of that particular restaurant would accommodate us youth who, didn't want to be other places or had no other places to be. And so this to me kind of goes full circle, knowing the lifestyle I grew up in and around, which still exists today over in this community. There's extreme poverty, there's a lot of different burdens that parents and families are facing, and that affords the opportunity for these kids to be unseen and causing some havoc that they could maybe not be causing. And I'm excited. There's not any other program over in the community currently that I'm aware of that, one, provides these kind of services, but also provides these services in this kind of a setting. I think about it kind of adjacent to how Ike Box and Isaacs serves kids all throughout Salem, but really predominantly in the downtown area, teaches them skills, provides them access, and helps them grow up into really stable young adults. I think this is the same, just through a different lens or different organization. Yeah. I'm excited to be a part of it. I do want to say thanks to the staff for moving this contract very quickly. Normally we don't, but it's my hope and support that you get this off the ground and running by school opening in September, which I know is the goal. Yeah. So I know we're quickly trying to push these dollars out.
Sure.
So there's always a lot of people involved in the county when it comes to contracts and moving money. So for all of you, thank you for making it happen. Literally overnight. Right. Because we just said yes yesterday, and I said I want it here today. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, thank you. Tim. Thank you, Kelly. I feel really good about the work we've been doing to support kids in our community. You know, we're doing that early literacy project at the Dolly Parton Library.
Yeah.
We've leaned in on fields, both soccer fields and baseball fields for kids in the community. And then we've done this sort of mentoring. I feel really good about that. I feel really good about kind of investing. I remember during COVID when the schools were shut down, the fields were shut down, we didn't have this infrastructure in place, and just the distress that our kids were under, right? And I think I'm gonna say this out loud, and like, it sounds ridiculous, but I think a lot of the adults were like, oh, well, we have computers and screens now, they'll be fine. They can go to school on screens, they can socialize on screen. Like, you say this out loud and you're like, who thought this was a good idea? Like, but I think our trajectory since then has been very positive in finding places and spaces for kids not to be on screens and for kids to have healthy social interaction and athletic physical interaction with each other. So I think that's a really positive thing.
Yeah, we're super excited. We've been on campus regularly at McKay doing surveys. We've surveyed hundreds of McKay students. Waldo, Stevens, and Barbara Roberts all have input to the facility. Their leadership has been a part of what would you guys want to see. They came up with some creative ideas that I didn't count on initially. Was they want, we'll have a tablet for them to put their student ID or phone number as they're coming in and that, so we can kind of get a sense of who's there, who's using our services. But they intend to create a point system so that kids can earn points by attending our programs or going there, and then they'll also help us with some behavioral issues too, because kind of holding some of those kids accountable. So I really feel like all those surrounding schools are full on and in it, and so that's super helpful. And I mean, if we're gonna even just do what we've done with the Grange, it's been open 1 year, and 29 kids since we opened the Grange who previously dropped out of high school are now enrolled at Chemeketa, getting their GEDs and associate's degree at no cost to the student or their family. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I have a friend who lives in New York and does work with kids in the South Bronx whose families are in gangs and that sort of stuff. They run summer camps. And I was asking him about this. I was like, hey, what do you do about behavioral issues, right? I mean, I'm sure there are kids who might be violent or whatever. And he's like, yep, absolutely. And he said the biggest thing that I've learned in my work is just not giving up on those kids. Yeah. So what'll happen is someone will come in, and if they're violent or they're disruptive, we do make them leave. They can't be there because they can't hurt other people. But he said, but then what I've found is I'll go visit that person every week, for as long as they're not in there. And he said it just makes such a big difference for that person to know that, like, I haven't given up on them, right?
Right.
And we've seen kids really grow. So that's sort of that tension between holding kids accountable, actually having real consequences for action, and then also maintaining the relationship. That was sort of like an aha for me of like, oh, that's so interesting. And of course, right, that's how
Sure.
humans are. But because I think for folks who maybe don't live in these communities or don't interact with some of the things that these kids have to interact with on a daily basis, you can kind of go to a place where you're like, man, this is so hard. How do we even make progress in some of these situations? And so it's very encouraging to me, talking to my friend.
Some of the other things that came back in the surveys we've been doing is there's a fair amount of kids that said we'd love to have a space to not be recruited by the gangs and that type of stuff. Like, they need a place to hang out. And some people, and I maybe was one of those kids that grew up with an unstable home or whatever. But all the survey stuff that comes back just fuels us for what we think we're on target. We'll make mistakes and we'll grow, but
That's fabulous.
Thanks for allowing a space for law enforcement to be a part of the community. They already are. I don't know if they do. I don't know what you guys call it, but Starbucks on Lancaster, they do coffee in the mornings, or coffee with the cop.
Yeah.
And
Not after September.
sorry, Starbucks, but we're moving north on Lancaster. That's the message that I just received, sir. Fine, coffee with the cop. Happy to be there. And the parking lot is better. It's much larger.
Yeah.
But my point is that it's a well-attended activity in our community over there, where people are really trying to build a relationship. We have some folks near Santana Park who are very frustrated right now with the level of crime that's going on over there. Lots of shootings, and the feeling of unsafe. To be in your home and feel unsafe is greater than being in your community and feeling unsafe. And we have a lot of this not feeling safe in your homes that we need to overcome. And I believe it's going to be the relationships that the sheriff's office is really pouring their time and energy into, which I'm very, very grateful for. But also us as a community really trying to be at the table and set a table for people to be at, to be accountable and to let people be heard and for us to listen and try to navigate solutions. There's never enough money, but this is a great step in the right direction for East Salem, and we can only improve. To bring additional resources, which we need over by Houck in mass amounts. And I hope that that's the next focus area that we can really wrap our hearts and arms around to get some systems set up to be able to eliminate some of the challenges that we are experiencing. Commissioner Cameron, would you like to say anything, or I just, keep talking about this? I'm very excited.
Well, I just think one of the again, missteps that we've made in our community is taking SROs out of the schools. And having
It's probably
the
the biggest
sheriff,
understatement of the year.
having the sheriff be able to maybe show up after, it's the it's East Salem Service District area over there. And we have a police force that could interact with the kids and build that relationship. It's kind of a step towards that, and that's why I wrote down SRO's ? And this is a place where hopefully the sheriff's sitting here with us today, because I had long-winded contracts for him. But I think this is a really good step towards that, relationships and that. Again, making sure, because we are using opioid dollars, that making sure that the health department and wherever there's resources that need to come in with counseling and those types of things, that we can interact. So it's a good spot to try to interject some good positive behavior.
Yeah, there's some multi-use conference room spaces.
Yeah.
So we've been in conversations with his sergeants and stuff on what would a need be if you wanted to swing by, not just have a coffee and hang out in the lobby, but want to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So those are all going to be available, to make happen for that. Yeah. So.
And the Boys and Girls Club is right there, and I know they built a room supposedly. A former sheriff said that was part
There's
of.
an office
There's
for
an
the
office
deputy
there.
over there.
And so just having that presence over there would be very positive for youth, I think. And
Yeah, we plan after-school programming around education on
Yeah.
all the different addiction issues and so on. CHWs will be having hours in the facility so
Yeah.
kids can check in and so on.
CHW
yeah.
is
So-
community health worker, for those who
Sorry,
don't
yeah.
know. No worries. Yes.
I didn't know what one was
I
5
know.
years ago, so
I
there you
know.
go.
Yeah, maybe we can recruit some future deputies and cadets out of there too as well.
And healthcare workers, because we
Yes.
need them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Of course,
To
thank you
your
guys.
team.
Those are my
do it.
comments.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great. Well, if we have no other comments, Commissioner Cameron, would you make the motion?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve a grant agreement with Brothers of Valor, Inc. To provide Valor mentoring funding in the amount of $150,000 to support public access coffee shop that is utilized to provide community improvement through safe space, recreation, and mentoring.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Just for the record, this is, as we said earlier, opioid funds.
Settlement
And
dollars.
we want to make sure that it is making a difference in that area.
Yes, sir. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks a lot.
And finance.
And
Our-
Sheriff.
Yes,
And Tim.
although he didn't motivate this contract to get here today, but I know he will be very participatory once it gets going. All right, under Public Works, Ryan's going to come up and talk to us about a master grant agreement with ODOT that enables Marion County to exchange federal surface transportation grant funds. I'm just going to let you talk about it.
All right, good morning. For the record, Ryan Crowther, Marion County Public Works. As you said, we're talking about our master agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation that will allow us to basically exchange federal funds for state funds. We do have a 90-cent on the dollar exchange rate for those funds, but what it does is it removes all of the federal requirements that we don't have to do when we use state funds. So it will reduce some of the environmental burdens, the administrative burdens, and some of the other things that make federal projects more expensive than state or county-funded projects. So with this, there is no money being exchanged with this agreement. It gives us the ability to exchange those funds. One thing you'll also see, if there are funds hanging out from a few years ago, there was a 94-cent exchange rate before 2021. So if there's a project that it's federal funds that are Marion counties, and we deliver that project under budget, we're able to exchange the additional funds for state funds instead of trying to move those to another federal project. So it gives us flexibility. It allows us to really deliver these projects in the most economical way. With that, do you have any questions?
No?
Just, wasn't there a bigger grab by the state though? When we did the exchange, they're taking a bigger percentage.
So that's when it went from 94 cents on the dollar to 90 cents on the dollar.
So they took an additional 4%.
They took an additional 4%, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that.
You're very good,
That was
yeah.
on the record. The state's taking more money.
You're keeping the right things on the record today, Commissioner.
All right.
Okay, I don't have any questions. Commissioner Willis, would you make the motion?
I will. Madam Chair, I move that we approve the master grant agreement with the Oregon Department of Transportation that enables Marion County to exchange federal surface transportation block grant funds to state funds as part of the fund exchange program through September 30th, 2029.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion passes. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
All right, Greg Walsh is going to come up and talk to us about the Marion County Emergency Operation Plan.
Good morning, Commissioners, staff, and Marion County. For the record, Greg Walsh, Marion County Emergency Management. Today, I am here requesting the consideration for the adoption of the order to adopt the 2025 through 2030 Emergency Operations Plan for Marion County. This is primarily to ensure that we maintain our federal grant requirements. This is one of those plans that we must have to receive anything from FEMA for grant requirements, including our post-disaster grant. So it also gives us that access to state and federal aid following disasters, and this is also in alignment with the ORS 401 requirement to have an emergency operations plan for a county. This plan update we did to modernize some of the best practices that have been identified over the since the last time we adopted it in 2020. So we've incorporated community lifelines, which is a more common aspect of how we integrate our operations to support the community. And although this is, we're adopting the base plan as part of this, we consider this an evergreen plan. So as changes come up, as we have events, we have the ability to go in, make updated changes, and we've had some information come to us and working with some of the department heads that they would like to be involved in some continued updates. So we will be doing that over the next several months. So just to make sure that we have the best plan possible for our county.
Okay. Commissioners, any comments, questions?
I guess I do have a question. Understandably, the hazards that you've taken a look at are, almost all of them are listed as a high priority. So if everything's a high priority, is anything a high priority? I mean, how are you gonna?
How are you going to prioritize the high priorities?
Prioritize the high priorities, there we go.
Yes. So although we have a very complex, we call it a THIRA, a Threat Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment. Within this plan, we did focus on kind of the top 5 to 10 that we see. We do have a whole list of more that we are actually a lower priority.
Okay.
But based on modern like day-to-day events and things that we're seeing today, we're actually even I had a conversation recently about elevating actually cybersecurity to one of the highest points, and starting to work more with the IT department here to start to incorporate more for cyber and IT. And we're actually looking at working on an IT cyber disaster response plan with them. So we are looking at prioritizing things based on modern day threats, increase that we've seen. And one of our proposed projects for the next year in our team is to actually do another threat hazard identification risk assessment to make sure we are taking in new information, new intelligence that we're getting to basically prioritize which is the highest priority.
So the ones listed here are the highest priorities, is what
Yes,
you're
sir.
saying? And then if they're not listed here, then they're a lower priority.
Yes, sir.
And you don't have any sense of, among the ones listed here, kind of what the relative priority is? It depends on what's most imminent. Is that sort of how you look at it?
Yes, so we do look at, Cascade is the easy one that we can say is our highest priority because we know it's going to be the biggest impact, although the probability is low. But we know that highest impact and highest community impact, so that is something that we focus a lot of our exercises on. And then what we look at next is things that happen more often. So we look at flooding, we look at wildfires, and then cyber events. So that's kind of our priority list, knowing that the biggest impact and then kind of the most common that does impact our county and our communities deeply. So,
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
yes, sir.
Can you talk about who participated in the creation of this plan?
Yes, so this plan, as we update it, we actually bring it to a number of, first off, internally, we look at our departments who have some sort of response consideration or would participate in an emergency response on the behalf of the county or lead that. So the Sheriff's Office, Health and Human Services, Public Works, those are kind of our initial stakeholder partners. And then we reach out to all the department heads as well to make sure that everybody has an inclusive piece in that if they have concerns or considerations. And then we start to look at our partners at the state level, at peer counties and surrounding counties. So we give them an opportunity to look at and review to make sure that we're not prioritizing something different than they might be. So Lynn County is one that we work closely with about the canyon as we talk about flooding, dam failure, and everything else. So we try to make sure that we're aligning our priorities together. And then we do, really kind of after it's adopted, we do make sure that it's a public document, and we encourage people to provide additional comment on that, so community members. But we work with nonprofits, so we work with the Red Cross, we work with Chariots actually, and a number of other agencies that may support a response or have resources that we coordinate with during an emergency.
What about cities?
Yes, and cities as well. So we especially work with the city of Salem, just heavy population density, high impacts if there are events. We do share it with the other cities, and this has actually been very beneficial for us as we've been doing our city's emergency operations plans updates. So as one of our other projects we have going on, we're helping all of our cities update their emergency operations plans. And we're sharing this as a document for them to kind of see what we do and how they would integrate into that. And we actually have specific language in this on how a city would escalate a request to the county if a city's capabilities are overwhelmed based on their emergency operations plan, how it elevates through disaster declarations and they get additional resources.
So cities outside of Salem don't have the opportunity to provide input on our plan? If that's the case, that's concerning to me, considering I appreciate the population, but just in my lifetime here as a commissioner, I can think of one major disaster, the ice storm, that didn't impact Salem as greatly as it did all of our rural city partners.
Yes.
So
We did share this with the other cities that we have that we've been working with for the emergency operations plans. So we have shared it. We asked them if they had any feedback or comments. But this can be part of our ongoing thing. I will do a more direct reach out to them and ensure that they have more opportunity to review it, make sure that it aligns with their priorities, and that they feel supported based on our plan.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Is this mine?
Yep.
Okay. Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve an order to adopt the 2025-2030 Marion County Emergency Operations Plan as required to maintain the county's eligibility for federal emergency management funding.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion passes. Thanks, Greg.
Good to see you, Greg.
All right, I'm going to pause the board session and open a public hearing. Finance is going to come forward to consider adopting the fiscal year 2024-25 third supplemental budget. Is there any public comment? Okay. I don't think there is, so go ahead, Daniel.
Okay.
Thanks.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Daniel Dotto with the Finance Department representing the budget team. I'm here to present the fiscal year 24-25 third supplemental budget. This request increases the total county budget by $4.3 million, bringing the overall county budget to just over $783 million. Just a couple key points here. Public notice was published in the Woodward Independent on June 18th, and copies have also been available on the county website and in the board's office. And then the board reviewed the supplemental budget in full detail at the June 10th management update. And here's just a couple of summaries of our adjustments. 25 funds in total were adjusted. There's a net increase of 5 FTE across the county, and the breakdown is in the general fund, there's a net increase of 7 FTE. This reflects the elimination of 10 vacant corrections deputy positions and the addition of 17 new stabilization specialist positions at the Stabilization Center. And then in the district attorney's office, 2 vacant positions in the child support fund were removed due to reorganization. Just to be clear here, these FTE adjustments are position changes only. They have no direct budget impact in 24-25. Also, these FTE adjustments are already factored into the 25-26 budget FTE year-over-year change, so there are no changes to the FTE count in the approved 25-26 budget that Jan will be presenting about next. In the general fund, 3 departments are receiving a budget increase of $753,000, and this is covered with contingency. The major factors here are $500,000 for increased jail medical and pharmaceutical costs. And then there's also some additional funding for the district attorney's office in adult prosecution. And then there's some expenses in the assessor's office for some IT field assessment equipment. Capital projects, a big new one, $1.8 million project is being added to design and install a unified emergency alert system in the Santiam Canyon. And $200,000 of that is included in the supplemental. This project was funded by a COPS federal grant. Also in facilities, $96,000 is allocated for a total project cost of about $696,000 for renovations at the stabilization center. This renovation includes upgrades to the tower area, windows, walls, and other changes just to make that space a more welcoming environment. And this project was funded with House Bill 4002 drug recriminalization funds. I just wanted to point out to the board, there are 2 minor updates since we met at management update. In the Community Development Fund, personal services increased by $10,000, and this was just due to some normal wage and benefit adjustments. And then in the Public Works Grants Fund, there was an additional $250,000 in materials and services. This was related to the grant septic system reimbursements in the Santiam Canyon, covering residential and commercial properties. With that, further details can be found in your supplemental budget packet, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have. And you do have a resolution in front of you to sign, if there aren't any.
Thanks, Daniel. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No,
I feel like we've beat this
right.
to death.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming back, Daniel.
Yeah.
So we're not doing a motion yet, because we have another
Okay.
item under public hearing. So we have no questions on this particular
Okay, great.
topic, so if you would please move on to the public hearing to consider adopting the fiscal year 2025-26 budget.
Okay.
Thank you.
That one's me.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Good morning to you all and commissioners. For the record, my name is Jan Fritz. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer and the county's budget officer. Today before you is a resolution to adopt the 25-26 budget. We have gone through a process and worked with the budget committee. They met on May 29th, went through every department's budgets, had presentations. It was a full day, and approved the budget and moved it on to the Board of Commissioners for final adoption, which is for today, and the resolution before you. So the total budget for 25-26 is $743,294,651. There are 1,652 FTE approved in this budget. And the resolution also imposes taxes at a permanent rate of 3.0252 on property taxes per 1,000 in Marion County in order to fund general funds. And a listing for each fund and the amount appropriated for the operations, contingency categories, as well as reserve for future requirements, and unappropriated ending fund balance is also attached to the resolution. I just would like to take a moment and highlight the brochure. Pass those down. We have updated them to the adopted budget, so hopefully that's great. This is the 3rd year we've done the sort of budget and brief for constituents. It talks about the revenue, the expenditures, the budget. It has a budget introduction section by me. The commissioners lists the budget team, which has 1, Government Finance Officers Award 14 years in a row, and the Finance Department has won a Certified Financial Document Award for the last 23 years. So we have an outstanding Finance Department with quality people. In the rest here, it lists every department, the dollar amount that was appropriated for their budget, the number of FTE they have, who the department head is or elected official. And then sort of a priority. This year, the Board of Commissioners established priorities they were interested in accomplishing, and that's how we laid it out. Funded certain ones, some of them don't require a lot of funding, but redirection of existing funding. And then we highlighted public safety just because all the work they've done, and it was an interest of the board. They are talking about creating a new initiative having to do with reducing drug crime and other crimes in partnership with the district attorney and the sheriff's office. So we're hoping on that. And then, if I may indulge you, Commissioner Willis asks me all the time, what is it I go through to come up with a budget? And it's sort of the art and the science answer. Yeah, that's true. But clearly, in number one, you have to know the numbers. You have to make sure they're accurate, and we have a great team that does that, Daniel and Jeff, and everybody in finance. And you also not just think of it in one-year increments, you have to understand what you're approving and how that rolls out into future years and what that means to you, the revenue, the expenditures. That's part of it. But the art part of it is spending a year watching what happens in the county. I watch the board, I watch what's happening at the sheriff's office and other departments, or the juvenile department, which gets a contract to now take on the youth from Washington County and open a pod because they are number one in services to youth in the entire state. Or the health department, you know, when you go through a crisis and you have COVID and they were all working 100 hours a week, or the wildfire where the sheriff's deputies put their lives on the line. We have an amazing, amazing county, and I think that really is the theme of this. Expect excellence, a high-performance government. We have consistently raised the bar in the work we do every year. I think the leadership from the Board of Commissioners, from the other elected officials and department heads, it's just amazing, and I think thank you. I know Marion County has such a advantage moving forward for the people, the employees that do all the work and help achieve the strategic goals that we all set. But that really is the capturing the essence of who we are. And it's not easy. I mean, it takes a long time. It's very frustrating because the numbers come faster for them than the, you know, synthesis of everything that I can think of over the year, and to pull that together and to really come up with a theme that really reflects Marion County and what our values are, how we move forward. That's the part, to me, that leaves a historical document in the clerk's archives. 100 years from now, somebody's going to go back and look, and what was Marion County like at that point? We did it one time when we were 100 years old. So it is a permanent record. It does document the work we do and the way we do it and who we are. And that's what's important to me too. So, thank you for the question.
Thanks, Jan.
That's it. Do you have any questions?
I have a couple of questions on page 1 of the document that somebody gave us. So is the general fund for coming into 2020, the next fiscal year, July 1, 2025, anticipated to be 137 million?
148.
148.
Oh, 148
Oh,
million.
okay. I'm sorry, 148 million.
It's the first time I've been here that we're forecasting a negative over the year before.
Right.
A loss.
Yeah, a downturn in general fund.
It's a reduction.
It's a reduction in general fund revenue.
And part
We-
of that is having to do with, you recall, we got ARPA money in '21 and '22 of $67 million. And all those projects, the board determined, several of them out into communities, into cities. It takes the engineering and the planning, and right now, we're just getting to the actual expenditure. You have to expend all the money by December of '26. So that's what's sort of driving a reduction in it. Everyone's spending it, including the county projects we have.
But my comment is that it's, a lot of that is other dollars that we're spending, because the total of change is a $31 million change, but the general fund is a $3 million reduction is what we're forecasting. And I believe that that's, you know, we're hopeful that with our economic development and people continue to grow and build homes and invest in Marion County, but we know how much harder it is in this state to do that. It's not all necessarily our policies here in the county, but if we can beat that, we'll be good. But we've never had a general fund decrease in the last 12 years. Right, Jan?
That I can recall,
Right.
yes.
So this is a really conservative
It is,
forecast.
some is accounted for
I'm not
in
looking at
shifting
that.
of funds rather than the loss of funds too, because you have to be able to move it to a different fund in Public Works to expend it on the sewer or the housing projects we've had. But it is a cautionary tale, and I think something we need to pay attention to for the future. The economic environment is so, you know, unknown at the moment, and I think it's a real cautionary, and like you said, we need to pay attention to it, and we need to make sure every decision we make, we take that into consideration.
Thank you. So, my question is around the general fund, not about ever reduction, and I appreciate Commissioner Cameron bringing that up. It's an important topic and something that we need to be messaging regularly. And at the $148 million that's listed here, is this from tax collection? Or is this $148 million saying that we are anticipating collecting that much money in tax revenue? Because this is unclear to me, and I think it would be unclear to the average, I think the answer is no.
That's correct.
And my point is that, so the commissioners say often that we spend more than 70% of our general fund on public safety. And according to this document, that's $98 million for the next fiscal year, which is a considerable amount of money. And that's not just the sheriff's office, that's the district attorney, the justice court, and juvenile. But what I think is important for me to try to help relay to the public is, we received money coming from all these different sources, the state, the feds, grants, you know, fees collected from the traffic team or whatever. But if we're not increasing our tax revenue through property tax collection, and the state is continuing to go off the rails, then we're gonna be upside down in our cost for services. And this is published for the public to look at, and it's just a little confusing because it's not apples to apples when we're talking about general fund. And I don't know how we reconcile that going forward, but I think if we're gonna be putting information out there, it needs to be really clear, somehow.
You know, when we say general fund, we're speaking of everything that goes into the general fund. Property taxes are $100 million.
Yep.
And there's interest income in there, and there's OLCC.
Timber revenues.
Timber, and there's a whole collection of different funding sources. But the majority is the 100 million of that 148 million is property tax revenue.
Okay,
Yeah. I don't have anything to add to that.
okay.
But we'll consider how we can show that better.
Yeah, and I would be interested in having a document that we can distribute, I'm gonna be going to do some Rotary presentations over the summer and early fall at the request of Rotaries in Marion County, and we're gonna be talking about budgets and services, and I think it's really important. I can't stress how important it is for people to understand how we pay for services in this county, because money doesn't grow on trees. And
Oh, yes, it does.
we don't get income tax revenue. The reality is, it used to, Commissioner. I'm quoted at a national conference saying, money used to grow on trees in Oregon, but then we stopped cutting them, so it doesn't anymore.
Well, it just burns up on the tree.
Yeah, anyway, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry, I'm just talking about reality here.
We are,
How we pay for services.
Yes, how we pay for these services is really important. My point to all of this is that, you know, we're getting a lot of pressure pushing down on local government to be high performers in services, and there's a lot of crisis in our communities. We don't receive income tax revenue. We only receive property tax revenue, and whatever the state chooses to bless us with through their arbitrary, ridiculous processes. The state is the income tax collector. So like everyone thinks that all this money is going into government, but it's sectioned into the governments that it goes into. And while we are high performing and we are efficient with our dollars, that revenue is decreasing. I mean, we've seen it recently with the contract negotiation with the Oregon Health Authority, and they're trying to impose their will on us, which is the largest service system that we have. I want to make sure that we have, and I don't know what that looks like. Maybe Jan, I need to sit down with you and Danielle and kind of talk through like how do we message out some of this from my perspective, and then you guys can design it. I'm not an expert. I'm just a person that writes the tax check every year, and I'm a frustrated commissioner trying to pay for the services that we know we need. But this is beautiful.
I do frequently ask Jan
How'd you do this?
about the budget. Tell me about the art part of this budget thing. And one of the things that I think I just want to add to this conversation is there are lots of governments, both in our region and to the north of us, that are not infrequently in some sort of a crisis, some sort of budget crisis. And I want to thank you, Jan, but I also want to thank our department heads, our elected officials. I look at this and, you know, the number of full-time equivalents is going down, right? Our budget just got $40 million smaller this year from last year, and we're not in crisis. And we're not in crisis because this was planned. We spent one-time money on one-time things. We're spending within our means, and we're doing all that with an enhancement of services. As I've been a commissioner, the amount of new projects, the amount of different services we're providing, the spectrum of services is more comprehensive. So I think one of the things that I admire about you, about the finance team, about our department heads and elected officials in this county is just real responsibility for the services we provide, for the resources the taxpayers give us to provide those services, and I think I see this organization executing at a really high level, making good, hard decisions early so that we're not in crisis later. Just gives me a lot of confidence, and I think it should give the voters and the taxpayers here a lot of confidence that this is a group of people that are doing new and innovative things, and also being responsible with the resources that we have. I see places where that doesn't work, where you have fighting, you have dysfunction, you have, a mess, frankly, right? And it's pretty nice to be in this place where we get to make people's lives better. And I can go to sleep at night not worrying about whether I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and, have the kind of a budget hole where I have to lay people off, or I have to look people in the eyes, and I don't worry about that. I don't worry about that because the leadership here is so strong. So I really appreciate that.
We appreciate you too. I mean, the leadership comes from the top, and I think we all try and meet your expectations and the direction and make sure we're open to new ideas, and yet there's a core foundation that we carry on who we are, what we do it right, and we do it when we say we're gonna do it. And I hope that continues forever.
Mm-hmm. And that's so simple, but having worked with you, I know how complex what you just said is. And I think that's one of the things that's so inspirational as well, It's like it's like watching, this is gonna be like super pop culture, but it's like watching LeBron James or one of these great basketball players, Michael Jordan, right? Like, they make it look so easy, but when you actually think about what they're doing, it's so difficult and complicated, and it's a lifetime of work.
I just heard you compare Jan to LeBron James.
I think that's appropriate.
That's a really, if it's appropriate, yeah. But when you look at all the CAOs around,
Saw her shoot a basketball, no.
I'm putting her in the Hall of Fame. I don't know about you.
I have one more question. Can you tell me what the source of the inmate welfare fund is? Like, what's the revenue source?
Commissary fees, right?
Yep.
Okay,
Telephone, money they spend.
wow.
This is also going to go down significantly
It's gonna reduce significantly.
with the SEC ruling, correct?
Okay, okay. We'll address that in a supplemental budget, I assume. Yeah, okay. And then, the Community Corrections Fund, is that CJC funding, pass-through funding?
State
Yeah, I mean,
Department.
So
of
it's a
Corrections.
combination of state funding, it's all state funded though?
Right.
Okay,
yes.
okay,
State
great.
funded. State funded.
Yes, right, okay. Daniel, do you have anything else for the presentation? Jan?
I don't think so.
I don't.
Okay.
Just thank you for your time, and we'll be coming up to you in for supplemental and
See you again soon.
You know, right on the corner. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and go back into board session. And item number 18, under finance, to consider approval of a resolution to adopt the third supplemental budget and make appropriations for the fiscal year 2024-25.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve a resolution to adopt the third supplemental budget and make appropriations for fiscal year 24-25.
I'll second the motion.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion passes. Item 19, consider approval of a resolution to adopt the budget, make appropriations, and impose and categorize taxes for fiscal year 2025-2026.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve the resolution to adopt the budget, make appropriations, and impose the categorized taxes for fiscal year 25-26.
And I second the motion.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye, the motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Steph.
Thank you.
And before I close today's board session, I just want to say today's a really big day. Kevin wore his hiking boots. I did not.
Is that a boy? Look at you.
And we are all going to be driving up to Mill City here in a little bit to do the groundbreaking for the Mill City sewer project. Daniel shook his head, yes, you should come. This has been a big deal for just about every department in the county, I feel like, for like 15 years. And I'm looking forward to it. I want to say thanks to our office staff. I'm not exactly sure who put all the details together. I know Shawnell and I have put together an agenda and invited some folks to speak, but I think it'll be a great day. So we're gonna go move some dirt with some shovels. I've said repeatedly up here during contracts, my son works for Sladen. Last night, he came home covered in mud. He's working on another project, I think in Hillsborough right now. And he had to use a shovel versus the equipment, I don't know, backhoe or whatever he uses, big equipment. And I said, hey, tomorrow we're gonna be doing the groundbreaking for Mill City. And he goes, how? I don't even have the machine up there yet. And I was like, no, we're going to use shovels. He was like, who's we? And I was like me. Dig a hole with a shovel. And he laughed at me. So he thinks it's entertaining that I'm going to use a shovel to do the project. He's going to take a massive piece of equipment up to there later and dig giant holes. So, the scale of things we do in life. I said I'd send him a picture so he could put it in his backhoe as he's digging, really moving the earth. Yeah, it is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's, I said this yesterday, I was kind of, not real excited, not as excited as you would normally be or as I would be for a groundbreaking, but I was actually talked to Vicki about it this morning, and I was thinking, Danielle Gonzalez, we should have invited Danielle Gonzalez to this. I was thinking about that.
That's a great suggestion.
Do you have her number?
I do.
Maybe she's available.
Yeah,
it's
just,
not like she has a job.
I didn't even think about it until when I was just sitting here thinking about the going back over 10 years ago when we started thinking about this, trying to pick this project up
it
for
was
the
10
canyon.
years before I got here, and I've been here 5.
Right.
Just so you know.
Yeah, well, I remember in her making it a project. She's working on her MBA or something over at Willamette, and
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember attending her presentation in front of her professors, and it's just like, okay, here it takes this long. And because of all that work that was just like a vision and somebody's hard work of having a vision and getting people to, you know, all the meetings she conducted, and because we were ready, and the COVID, the fire hits, and this is one of those things that, I think I said it yesterday, that the chaos, and good things can come out of chaos sometimes. And people thinking positive and saying, how can we move out of this and come out better on the other side? And so today is another one of those steps, just another one of those steps of turning chaos and things that were crumbled because of, and I have this deep faith that God makes good things out of fire, right? And, you know, in our lives, the things that we go through that are hardest make us better. And this is one of those things today that we're going to be able to put a shovel in the ground to say, this community is going to be better.
Yeah.
It's going to still take a lot of work for a lot of people. But there's been so many people involved in this project along the way, and it'll be long after we're gone. People will still be working on that. And, you know, I was reading the emails between Will and Laura today, and Detroit, Idana, and, you know, last night I was on a planning commission meeting, chairing the planning commission for Detroit, and people asked me, well, what's happening with Detroit? And I said, well, you know, it's this 3-basin rule, and if this gets changed, then there may be an opportunity that you can find some ground up there that would be better. But I said, then it's $100 million.
Or a pipe. I mean, I remember when we first did this, we looked at it, and it was basically the same cost, as I recall. It was like $80 million to run a pipe down to Gates along the highway as it was to build the system up there. I think we're still in the same situation. Either way, building this system and extending it to Gates, having a Mill City and Gates sewer system, makes it more likely that something will happen in Detroit someday. Now, that doesn't mean that there's an obvious, this is how it's going to happen, but there's no question that this makes it more likely.
Yeah. You'll be here.
Maybe. One thing I was thinking as you were talking is, there's a saying, and I forget what culture or country it comes from, but it's sort of like, the man who hasn't suffered, what does he know? And, you know, there's a certain type of pain that's not constructive. It doesn't build people up. It's just destructive, right? But there's another type of pain that kind of, when people suffer for each other, right? It kind of deepens your love, and it changes you in a positive way. I talk about, like, it makes your heart bigger, right? And that's kind of what I think of when I think of this community since the fires, is it feels like as a community, our hearts have gotten bigger. There's sort of a maturity and a depth to people that is really fun to see. Really something to
You know
admire.
who visualized that the best? The Grinch. Just listening to you talk, all I can think about
Nice.
is
Yeah,
the cartoon,
that's
the
it.
Grinch.
That's right.
Is
That's
his
it.
heart is swelling? Is he seeing all the sadness from the kids?
I kind of was thinking of the sheriff.
I mean, we can dress him up as the Grinch, but I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
right,
the
that's
visual
right, that's
of what
right,
you're
that's
describing, I know this is very immature, but I'm just.
Sometimes there's deep wisdom in simple children's stories.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And Cindy Lou Who is the best.
That's
Oh
it.
my God.
That's
Just
it.
saying.
Ron James, the Grinch.
I know.
Yeah.
No, we're on a roll. We're on a roll,
Listen,
sure.
we're just all very healthy minds today, so we're just going to enjoy it.
For 2 weeks in a row, 'cause remember there's another groundbreaking next week.
I have a groundbreaking tomorrow, too, for the secure residential treatment facility that,
No, that's a ribbon cutting.
I'm sorry, that's right,
That's
it's a ribbon
done.
cutting. It's done. They can move in. That's right. I did that last year.
Got to get your groundbreakings and your ribbon
I
cutting
know.
straight.
What's the
Commissioner
groundbreaking
Bethel.
next week? Oh, next week is the evidence building.
Evidence.
You know what, Sheriff? All I hear you saying is that we're doing a great job here in Marion County. We all are doing a great job. And yes, so tomorrow, I think it's at 1 o'clock, we are doing the ribbon cutting, thank you, Commissioner Cameron, for the new secure residential treatment facility over off of Lancaster. Yes, it's at 1 o'clock.
Send my congratulations. I'm gonna,
325 Lancaster. I know you won't be there.
I'll go to the state and lunch.
I worked really, really hard for this facility to be seen and heard through Oregon Health Authority with some of our community partners who just kept getting the door slammed on their face, which just it frustrates me. I said the other day, I'll kick that door through if I have to. And I just tell you what, Carol Hurd came and talked about it today. And tomorrow we get to see the fruit of that labor. We need to take care of our neighbors. And we're doing a good job doing it here. So thank everybody for their efforts and time. Let's go move some dirt. See you in Mill City. We're adjourned.